Hi everyone, this is Ashley Latecki Ellenboss with Sky House Herb School and Apothecary, and today I'll be talking about spiritual and physical thirst and have a reflection on this topic and some plants. So, as I was thinking today about kind of what is of relevance and what has been speaking to me and what has been on my mind and heart lately, I wanted to share a poem with you that has been a really big inspiration. And this is a poem from the poet Mary Oliver from her book Thirst. And the poem is actually the title of this book, which is Thirst. And so we'll be talking about thirst today. And what is thirst? What does it mean? And how do we look at it from both a physiological and also from a spiritual perspective? So let me read this to you to get us started. Another morning, and I wake with thirst for the goodness I do not have. I walk out to the pond, and all the way God has given us such beautiful lessons. O Lord, I was never a quick scholar, but sulked and hunched over my books past the hour and the bell. Grant me in your mercy a little more time. Love for the earth and love for you are having such a long conversation in my heart. Who knows what will finally happen or where I will be sent? Yet already I have given a great many things away, expecting to be told to pack nothing except the prayers which, with this thirst, I am slowly learning. So, this speaks to me in so many ways because I think so many of us right now, we have this deep thirst. And so, what is it that we're thirsting for? What is it that we're really seeking? What is really driving us in the choices we make and in the way we live our life? And for me, as a person who follows the spiritual path of bhakti yoga, um, this thirst is something that ideally is focused on God. And that's something that Mary Oliver speaks to in her poem is this thirst to be near God, this thirst to be near the source. And you could add whatever term feels most comfortable to you, but this thirst and this deep desire to be in a relationship with this divine force. And that part of what Mary Oliver speaks to as well is this thirst that we have for the thirst itself, right? It's like once we get a taste, and for me, I think about when I'm deep in the woods and it's quiet and it's just the sounds of the birds and the trees and crinkling leaves, that I get a glimpse of what God sees and sort of the state of being where God resides. And I thirst for more of that. And when I return home, there's this part of me that says, "Oh, what was that feeling? How do I get back to that? How do I remember? How do I stay thirsty for that? How do I not get sucked into the mundane world with all of the troubles and the ups and downs? And how do I really stay connected to that feeling and that desire for wanting more?" And this is sort of the deep call of devotion that in bhakti yoga we're constantly striving for. And so, this line where Mary Oliver writes, you know, who knows what will finally happen or where I will be sent? Yet already I have been given a great many things, or already I've given a great many things away, expecting to be told to pack nothing except the prayers which, with this thirst, I am slowly learning. And so, as we walk along the spiritual path, we do have to give things up. We have to give away habits and patterns and relationships and even physical items that we know are not really in our best interest. And the last line where she says, "I am slowly learning," I think is so powerful, because I think when we really tap into the thirst that we feel, this hunger we feel to know God, um, we feel so inadequate, and that's a good thing. I know I've heard so many of my teachers on this path just say, when you feel like I'm such a bad yogi, I'm really, how am I ever gonna, you know, get better at this? That's when you know you're in the right place, is when you feel small, and when you're humbled. And so when we realize how inadequate we are, that's when we can really desire more, and when that thirst can really pick us up and bring us closer to that source that we're looking to drink from. So the other piece that I've been reflecting on is how this thirst, this spiritual thirst, that we're craving, can somehow, in some ways, take the form of physical thirst, and we can get confused by it. And I know that for myself, sometimes when I'm just desiring to know God more, and it feels so far away and so unobtainable, that I think, for, well, what can I obtain? And it's often a quick fix. It's something in the material world that cannot do justice to the actual desire that I'm feeling. And so we can sometimes mistake this spiritual thirst for physical hunger. And so this can be physical hunger for food, and we can indulge in food to try to quench that spiritual thirst. Um, but we can also do this by default of material distractions. And so I too, this is something that I pay attention to in my own practices every day, is, am I really listening to the deeper thirst that's calling me? The other thing that's really interesting is I love etymology, which is the history and the breakdown of words, where they come from. So I looked up the etymology of the word thirst, because that's really our reflection for today. So one of the roots is the word ters, Ters, which means to dry. So part of what thirst means is when something is dried or is drying, and that's that parched feeling we feel in our mouth, right, when we are physically thirsty. But there's also another Proto-Germanic root of the word thirst, which is thurs, Thurs, which means vehement desire. And isn't it true that it's both, right? That thirst is both this vehement desire for something and this feeling of being dry. And so when we're thirsting after answers, and thirsting for comfort, it can drive us. And so we just have to be mindful of, where are we being driven, right? Number one, who's driving? Who is in the driver's seat? But where are we being driven? So it was interesting, as I was writing out my notes for today's talk, I was vehemently writing and exploring this idea, and my pen went dry. And I was like scribbling, and I licked it, and I was like, oh, like I'm working so hard to try to juice up something that is actually empty. Like, this is so perfect. So, we have to be very discriminating, because sometimes when we think that there's something out there that's going to make us happy, and runs dry, it could be a relationship, it could be a food that no longer satisfies us. We point at that food or that relationship and we say, oh, that's the cause. It has run dry. But what I would say is actually the teaching there, and what I think my pen triggered for me when it ran out of ink, was that, oh, wait a second. This is actually now exhausted. What was it I was doing? Oh, yeah, I was reaching for God. And it's not about the pen. It's like that quote, the finger that points at the moon. Don't be distracted by the finger. Remember that what you're pointing to is the moon. So stay focused on the moon and not the finger. And so when we can get attached to these ideas of, um, this idea that that this item or this thing is what is helping me to discuss and explore God, rather than getting too focused on that, I just picked up a pencil and I said, okay, in this particular situation, I need to find a new instrument. And we can think of this, metaphorically in many other ways, but for me, it was simply picking up another instrument and continuing my search and my quest for understanding thirst. And so I went on. Um, so how do we do this? How do we stay in this mode of thirsting for connection? And the first thing we can do is to admit that we're beginners. And just like Mary Oliver said in that poem, her very last line is, "I am slowly learning." And it can be very we can get very dissuaded, or we can become disgruntled when we try something and it doesn't work, right? Like, oh, but I'm doing yoga, but why am I not feeling my thirst is not being quenched? Or I'm doing this or that. And to have that beginner's mind, and to remember that it's okay to feel really small, and it's okay to feel inadequate, and that can actually be a really good impetus. So we can just say, I am a beginner at this. I'm a beginner for thirsting for you, God. I don't know what it's like to love you. I'm a beginner at being a lover. And so we can just start simply right there. Um, what also has helped me in this exploration, which has been many, many years, has been a daily reading of spiritual work. And so that can be any spiritual text that points you back to God. Again, it's not the text, but what it's pointing to. And so that could be maybe the Bhagavad Gita is a really wonderful spiritual text to read. It can be I used to read every day the work of Eknath Iswaran, Easwaran. He's an incredible teacher of yoga philosophy, and just a really wonderful wordsmith. And so I would listen to him on YouTube and his videos. I every day I would make a practice. Let me listen to something spiritual that points me back, that orients me back to God. And that has been such a powerful and potent quencher of this thirst, and it keeps me out of trouble. When I start my day with devotion, um, it sets the tone for the rest of the day. And so when I think I'm looking for some sort of satisfaction from, junk food, or from a quick purchase, right, online, or something like that, I can catch myself, not always, but more now than I could before. I can catch myself and say, well, what am I really needing right now? Do I need to just take a walk outside? And oftentimes that's actually what I need. I don't need that material object. The other thing that is really been essential for my practice in quenching my daily thirst is japa, which is mantra meditation. And I use mala beads, which are beads strung in a circle. They look much like a rosary, with a guru or a head bead on the bottom. And there's 108 in the mala. And so I use a very powerful Maha mantra from the Bhakti tradition, and I chant 2 to 3 rounds every day, every morning when I wake up. And the ideal is 16, and I'm just not there yet. I do 2 every single day. Some days I can do 3, some days I can do 4. But that mantra meditation is like uh, it's like a bath. It's like a spring bath for my mind and for my spirit, and the sacred sound connects me back to the source, and then also it just creates a rhythm in my psyche where I can process old information, and I can see things in a new and more insightful way. So you can find maybe your own mantra that works for you in your own spiritual tradition, but doing that daily is, I think, a really good way to be closer to God and to quench that thirst. Another interesting way that I wanted to turn this word and turn this exploration is to look at the idea of thirst from the physical perspective. This idea of really wanting water, something to drink, and that when we're thirsty, we're trying to connect with the yin principle. Water is a yin. It's not. It's cool. It's damp. It's heavy. It's cloying. And so we when we're thirsty, we're looking for that. We're looking for that yin receptive, cooling, settling principle. And one thing that's really interesting to note is that, most of us are chronically dehydrated. Most people in the Western world really don't drink enough water. And so this principle has been depleted. It's like, the pen, it's starting to run dry on a more physical and physiological level. And one thing that I've noticed in myself over the years is that when I'm dehydrated, I stop drinking water. And you'd think that our bodies would would make us thirsty when we're dehydrated, but that doesn't actually happen for a lot of people. And in my body, when I'm drinking water, then I crave water. I'm actually thirstier when I'm hydrated, which is like a cruel joke from our bodies, or at least my body, but that's how my body responds. However, when I'm drinking water regularly, I get thirsty and it reminds me that I need water more. And I feel like that's a parallel to the spiritual world, that when we are really, really dehydrated spiritually, we forget, we kind of, we stop remembering that we need that spiritual sustenance, and we can go dry and living in a very material, very non-connected way for a long period of time. And then once we get a taste of something spiritual, it could be from a tragedy in life, it could be from a blessing like a birth of a new baby, it could be being out in nature and just having this, remembering this insight, and then we say, oh yeah, gosh, I haven't prayed, or I haven't, tried to reach out to God in a long time. And that will whet our appetite for more. And so, this idea that the daily practice of drinking water quenches our physical thirst, and the daily practice of reading and doing sacred chanting also whets our spiritual thirst so that it can be maintained. We don't want to go so long without water and without spiritual sustenance that we dry out. Uh, on a more physical level, this idea of dehydration is serious, and it has very serious negative health consequences. And just to list some of the symptoms and consequences of dehydration, I just wanted to outline these for you. So, your skin, your hair, your nails can become dry, your bowels can become dry, and you can become constipated. It can age your skin more rapidly. Toxins can build up in your body and they cannot be flushed out. You can suffer from muscle cramps and muscle spasms, kidney stones, kidney infections, headaches, and general lethargy. So, these are all serious, and when we are dehydrated, our physical bodies will start to tell us in all of these different ways that we need water. So, what are some simple solutions for this physical dehydration? Well, my favorite and the simplest is water with sea salt. This was something that was taught to me by one of my herb teachers, Margie Flint. And when I was visiting her, I'd flown on an airplane. This was before COVID. It was actually like a week before COVID. She looked at my lips and she said, "Oh dear, you are dehydrated." And she said, "You need to go drink some water right now." And she said, "Grab some sea salt from my jar and just put it in your water." So I did that, and within 24 hours, my lips were plump again, and I was feeling much better overall. So you can do that for yourself as well. Is just, take a little pinch of sea salt, drop it into your water bottle, and have that as something that can keep your electrolytes high and keep you moist, or juicy, as Margie would say. The second thing that is, I think, a wonderful herb that can help you with staying hydrated is marshmallow root. The Latin name is Althea officinalis, and it contains a number of different compounds, including mucopolysaccharides. These are long chain sugars that are very sticky and slimy. Sometimes you can think of mucilage is often what they're called, and it has this very demulcent, moistening, and soothing and cooling quality. So it's very yin, just like what water provides for us. And it is also hydrophilic, which means it attracts water. So when you drink a marshmallow tea, then what it does is it actually attracts more water to the mucous membranes of your body. You can think about those little mucopolysaccharides sticking to all the mucous membranes, and that's your digestive system, your respiratory system, all the way up through your sinuses, all the way even superficially in the interstitial membranes, in the skin. And so when you drink a tea, and I'll tell you how to make it in a minute, and you take in marshmallow root, it will bind and hold water to those mucous membranes. So it'll literally just help hydrate and plump up the tissues of your body, really working from the inside out. And that's also what the spiritual practice does, is it moistens us and it feeds us from the inside, and then that will shine outward. So what you can do to make and to use marshmallow root, I would recommend taking a quarter cup of the dried root, adding it to a quart jar that's about 4 cups of cold water. Let that steep in the jar overnight, and that will really pull out a lot of these polysaccharides. And when you add heat, it can damage them. It will extract more of the starches, but if you want the mucilage, then cold water is the best extractor. So a quarter cup marshmallow root in a quart sized jar, 4 cups of cold water, sit overnight, strain it through something the next day, and then drink that whole quart throughout the day and start in the morning. And you should finish it probably by around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So you really want to make that, be something that you want to do in the first part of your day to really get that hydration in. And once you start doing that for 3 or 4 days, you'll be thirsty for regular water, and then it will be easier for you to get water in your body. Another little tip is having a cup with a straw. This is something that my doula taught me, who helped me with my birth. She said, for whatever reason, people tend to drink more water when they have a straw. So, you can buy all sorts of different drinking containers. I recommend stainless steel is ideal, or glass containers for drinking and then add a straw to that. To buy your marshmallow root, there's a number of different sources. I just looked right before I recorded this at my favorite source, which is Oshala Farms, Oshala Farms in Oregon, and they're all out for the season. So if you're listening to this in the fall, they might not have it in stock, but you can also buy it through Smile Herb Shop, which is a place where I used to work. And you can go to Smile Herb Shop. I think it's smileherbs.com, but they're a little herb shop based out of College Park, Maryland. And if you buy from them, you can use the discount code Sky Herbs and get 15% off your order. So you could actually, they carry a number of different organic, high quality dried herbs. I would recommend starting with maybe a pound of 8 ounces to a pound of dried marshmallow root, and drink that every day for starting with 2 weeks. And you can certainly go longer than that. But if you suffer from dry skin, dry hair, dry nails, especially as we go into the winter where people are having their heat on and that radiant heat is very drying for the body, you'll find that to be a helpful ally, to help bring hydration in. So I hope this talk has been helpful. And I know for me, just sitting with this idea of thirst and, really reflecting upon how satisfied I feel when I do my daily spiritual practices, and when I really connect in a very humble way to this incredible creator who has given us so much. How intensely grateful I feel, and how satisfied I feel, and that that vehement desire for more of that love and that satisfaction builds in the most beautiful way and does not deplete. There is a quote. I'm going to forget where it's from. I think it's maybe from the Upanishads. Is that God is like, it's like the well that never runs dry, that is always replenished. You take some, but then more appears. And so in that way, we can plug into this endless well and this wellspring of sustenance that can keep us, really, really deeply satisfied and craving for all the right things. Because desire is something we can't get rid of. We might as well use it to our advantage. So thank you all so much for listening. I'd love to hear your comments and any reflections, and of course, I always love to hear if this is helpful for you. So thanks again for watching and listening, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye bye.